Utility. It's probably the most underappreciated and necessary part of CSGO. Everyone needs it, and using it makes your life all the more easy. And hey, without it, we wouldn't have great moments like the Pronax Molly 3K from ESL Finals against Cloud9. What's up, ProGuides fam? It's Boggs, and today we're diving a little deeper into utility with 2 tips for each piece. When you look at the utility giants Astralis or the smoke criminal Stewie, utility has become a key part of the history of CS and has only become more important as the meta evolves. You might be the best player in the world mechanically, but a well-placed nade or molly can ruin your day. A perfect flash leaves you hung out to dry. So without further ado, let's hop right in. To kick things off, let's go over HE grenades. Now I think it goes without saying, but you need a plan when you're using utility. You can't just run in and throw something to a random spot at a random time and expect it to work. There has to be a method behind the madness. When you watch pro matches, you'll see certain pieces of utility thrown on a regular basis at just about the same times. Even when you're playing your own games, you'll probably, for instance, smoke or molly A ramp on Mirage just about every round, molly and nade banana on Inferno, and I could go on. This brings us to the first tip I want to mention here. Learn nade spots. HEs generally can't one-shot your opponent, but they can finish the job if someone's been tagged, or they can do some good damage early on and make situations much more manageable. Why do you nade banana consistently? You want that chip damage to make those fights a lot easier, and also, a wounded opponent is probably going to play differently than if they had the full 100 HP. Continue with Inferno for example, let's down banana. There's much more damage to be had if you throw your nades in a particular part of the banana area. If you're a little late to throw your nade, try throwing it for logs. There's usually at least one person over the logs area, especially if you couple this nade with a flash to force your enemies to take cover. Sending your area strike to the mailbox position is a good early nade as it'll catch the players running up the right side heading for cover. Left plus right clicking your nade throw is good for those players that are closer to the half wall on top of car. Each of these nades has its own particular purpose. Looking at T side, we could stick to banana, but let's go to overpass. Just exiting T connector, there's 2 main nade spots to hit: stairs and close party. If you can chunk that opper down or even slow that movement and catch them in the open, that will make for a much easier kill or even a free one. Even if the damage is negligible, the smoke from the nade explosion can block the vision of anyone trying to peer down and range at your exodus from spawn. Speaking of using the nade explosion, plenty of times you'll see teams throw a nade mid-doors and dust too instead of that smoke for that reason. The explosion blocks the eyes of the enemy, keeping that smoke grenade to either hold off that B-site rush or even use it for a retake over on A. There's countless nade spots to learn and master on each map, and knowing when to throw your nade and where will make your utility damage stats go up and make your enemies easier to kill. Before we move forward though, let's go over our question of the day. Out of all of the pieces of utility, which is your favorite to use? I have to pick flashbangs. I love being able to force the opposition to dance to my fiddle, so to speak, and seeing those flash assist markers on the kill feed makes me a very happy man. Maybe you have a pyromaniac streak though and love the mollies, or HEs are more your style. Let me know down in the comments below. Knowing where to throw your nades is good, but this is the more impactful part of the HE skill tree. Don't use your HE all alone. Before you take this as gospel though, there are plenty of opportunities where you should use your nade in isolation without another piece of utility, especially if you know a player is low somewhere nearby. But in general, you should be using your HEs in conjunction with other pieces of utility. If we look back to Astralis, their HE and molly combos were so deadly at their peak, they could decimate teams in grand finals with grenades alone. There's plenty of clips of them double nading window and Mirage to great effect. One comes to mind where Astralis sent 4 nades into window and killed both Guardian and Nico. Aside from using HEs together, using a nade coupled with a molly can be extremely deadly. Due to that movement speed hit you take when you get naded, it'll keep the enemy stuck in the flames to roast and give your team the kill. For smokes, I'm going to kick this off with a bind that everybody should have. If you watch pro players streaming or even many smoke tutorials, you'll notice that they have a different crosshair for lining up their smokes. I'm going to drop that bind in here today so you can use it for yourself. This full screen crosshair helps a ton when trying to get those pixel perfect lineups. Here's that command: bind, whatever key you want, toggle CL_crosshair size, whichever size crosshair you have, 1000. I think it goes without saying why this is something really good to have, but it really did make my life a ton easier after I set this toggle up. Having that fallback to make sure I'm setting up my lineups pixel perfect gives me more confidence when calming to my teammates that smokes are where they're supposed to be. Just be careful not to get caught out with a giant crosshair on your screen, as it'll make your gunfight a little more difficult. I'm lucky because I use a very small crosshair right now, but if you use a thicker one, and if it's all across your screen, you might have some difficulty finding your enemy. If you want some more sick binds and other CS help, head on over to ProGuides.com. Our great coaches would love to share their wealth of knowledge with you to help you improve your game. Whether that's simply setting up your game correctly or even learning about advanced topics, just protocols and decision-making frameworks, our coaches got you covered. How long does the smoke last in CSGO? 10 seconds? 20? It's somewhere in between at 18 seconds, with 15 seconds at full bloom. Now, what can we do with this information? Well, there's a multitude of things we can do with it, but one main thing is to keep an eye on timings. Timings become incredibly critical at the higher stages of CSGO, and knowing how to work with them can make you a much more successful player. Knowing how to manipulate timings on your defense will make sites easier to hold and enemy takes much less effective. One big spot that comes into mind for this is top mid on Inferno. If you use your utility well there, timing your mollies and smokes, you can effectively hold out until about 30 seconds left in the round when working with a teammate. Another thing to keep in mind with timing though is the fact that you can play with that 15-second timer in mind. CSGO smoke bloom is client-side, so the way things look for you will be different for others, and playing in the smoke with it's about to fade gives you an advantage in that duel, as you're most likely to see them before they see you. This is a really great way to get the drop on people, but be careful, as the more often you use this trick, the more will be anticipated, and you'll be spammed or watched for. So I just dropped a pop quiz on smoke timings, but here comes another one. How long do mollies last for? 100 people surveyed, answers on the board, and the winner is 8 seconds. Now we just discussed how timings can be manipulated knowing how long smokes last for, and what kind of havoc you can cause with that knowledge. So let's get a little deeper into our friendly neighborhood Molotov cocktail. Before we start though, let me clarify that I will be using the term molly to encompass both mollies and incendiary grenades. I'm sure you've all seen fantastic mollies like the play we mentioned in the beginning, which denied the bomb defused by Cloud9, but we'll go over offensive molly uses first. Mollies can be used to control how the CDs are playing by controlling where they can play. Picture this, you're playing ramp on nuke, holding for that trophy rush. The T's toss a molly onto the ramp below you while you're holding on the railing at the headshot angle. What are your options? You can drop into the molly and take that damage, which will probably chunk you down to about half, if not lower, to the 30 HP range. You can stand and fight, or you can try and drop down and run towards hell or even the back box. If you take option A, you'll take massive damage and maybe even die. Option B will see you in a one and done unless you're flashed first, in which case, that means you'll probably die before you even have a chance at getting that kill. Option C will open you up to fire from multiple different angles, and you probably won't get anything done from that angle either. With that cheap $400 investment, the ramp room has basically been opened up from a major angle, leaving hell and close corner the only spots left to clear. These situations show up multiple times a game, and knowing how to force your opponents into angles which makes them easy targets will help you win more rounds, and thereby more games too. Aside from controlling your opponent's position, mollies have another neat use. You all know how smokes extinguish mollies on contact. Using that knowledge, maybe you have a guess as to what I'm going to suggest here. You can use mollies to block smoke set pieces. A lot of utility innovation came to public knowledge via Astralis, and this particular molly did as well. We're traveling back to nuke here looking at outer yard. The classic smoke wall to hide the cross to secret is so common it's even thrown when teams aren't making their play to secret just to keep that enemy on edge. This molly lands where the smokes bounce just by the red box. When the smokes come flying in, they extinguish right on the molly and leave the secret run wide open for CTs to mow down some Ts. The same concept can be applied commonly to window and mirage, creating a bit of a one-way for the opera and window. But there's other areas these mollies can be thrown to give you an advantage and catch off of your opponent. Don't feel constrained to the standard meta when you use your utility. Feel free to innovate and try new things. There's always practice servers and services like ESEA Refrag to practice what you want to. Flashes are the most versatile piece of utility. You can create space, you can buy time, you can force players into awkward fights, and there's really no limit on what flashbangs can accomplish in CS. To start off, we'll go with a similar concept to the last molly tip, to control your opponent's positioning. How you place your flashes is critical to how effective they are, which sounds pretty self-explanatory, but using flashes well is easier said than done. Yes, obviously you want to blind your enemy, but there's other ways to control them besides just blinding. I'm sure you all know to turn away from flashbangs, and this is a great thing to do, but it can also be used against you. If a flash comes through, your instinct is to turn away if you're committed to the fight, or to hide away. For the example's purposes here, you turn away when you see the flash come in, but before the flash pops, the enemy swings, catching you looking the other way. Yeah, they'll be blinded after the flash pops, but you're dead. You can also use flashes to force your enemies into mollies or nade spots with well-coordinated takes. That usually takes team practice to master. Well folks, I've saved the best for last. Our final flash tip is a great thing for solo queuing, or even catching someone off guard in a clutch situation, or anywhere you need to pop flash yourself. If you run backwards and right-click your flash into the air, the flash will fly over your head and pop while your back is turned, blinding anyone who might be in the way, leaving them wide open for the picking. It is a little risky since you open yourself up to be shot at in the back, but it's a great little play to get something going all alone. If you do this with teammates too, it's a fantastic way to double swing. Whether it's using your HEs in combination with mollies, to blocking smoke with flames, there's a nearly unlimited way to use utility in CSGO. There's always more to be discovered and learned, and watching teams like Astralis and Big are always great ways to gather more great NADE plays. If you're still having trouble with utility though, or want some help figuring out how to use it in play, our fantastic coaches at ProGuides.com would love to help. I hope this video helped you out with some neat utility tricks and ideas. Let me know down in the comments below what your favorite piece of utility is, and don't forget to leave a like, smash that sub button, ring the bell to get notified of all of our CS tips and tricks uploads, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace!